Welcome to Bridging Gaps, the business podcast sharing the challenges and stories of fellow business owners.
Hello and welcome. In this week's episode, I'm in conversation with Alison Edgar, Managing Director of Sales Coaching Solutions and the Entrepreneur's Godmother. She's one of the UK's top 10 business advisors and now a best-selling author. Alison is regularly featured on LBC, BBC One Breakfast, The Sunday Times, The Telegraph, The Guardian, and BBC Radio 4 Moneybox. Please note that during the recording of the interview, Alison and I did encounter some technical problems. You may notice the occasional blip as we remedied the situation. I hope you'll join me in welcoming Alison to Bridging Gaps, the business podcast. How are you today, Alison?
Oh, I'm fantastic, Deborah. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Oh, well, you're very welcome, and I really appreciate you taking the time. I'm really looking forward to talking to you and learning more about what it is that you do. Alison, how did you come up with being the godmother? What took you down being the entrepreneur's godmother?
So it kind of called me down the path. So I'll tell you a little bit of the backstory, really. So my background is hospitality and also blue chip sales. So I worked in blue chip for 25 years. And what had happened was I was working for a company, and at the time they were moving from print to digital. So I was selling advertising to small businesses. And I believe that you can't sell something that you do not 100% believe in. And I was at a crossroads that I didn't believe in the product. So it was really hard to sell it. And I had no idea what I was going to do. So I phoned my friend in Scotland and said, I'm going to do something, but I don't know what. And she said, you're going to set up a business to teach people to sell the way that you do, from your heart and with passion. So I thought, that's a great idea. So I started the business in 2011. And at that time, I think this will really resonate with your listeners. It was like one day I was like, having a business, and then I was like, oh no, I can't do this, it's really hard. And then the next day I was like, oh, okay, I'll try again. And there was a lot of ups and downs, and I call it waiting for the Tom Daley moment, because really when you get to the point when you're really serious at it, you get to the top of the 10-meter board, and I had been up and down the stairs many times before I actually dived in. And it's interesting. So my husband, during this period of time, wasn't particularly supportive of the business, to say the least. And one day I challenged him and I said, you're not supporting me or my business. And he said, Alison, you're just playing at this. And I think that was one of the things that really kind of struck me. So rather than taking that as a negative, I took it as a positive, because in my heart of hearts, I was just playing at it. I still was working part-time. I had 2 young children, and it was kind of hit and miss. But as soon as 2014, I went limited and I took on a team and things. So that was the real crux of taking it seriously. And I started Sales Coaching Solutions, which is where it all came from. It limited company in 2014. And at that stage, part of the catalyst to jump off the diving board was there was government funding. So the work that I was already doing with small businesses, the government were paying half. I was getting a full day rate and they were paying. So it was great value for everyone. It was a win-win. But in 2015, the government pulled the funding. So what it did was it left a gap for startups, micros, and owner-managed businesses who don't have large budgets. And they're the ones who need me most. They really, really need me, but they've got no money to pay me, or they've got limited budget to pay me. So how do you help them and run a successful business and pay the wage bill and do everything else? So what I did, I've got a really good network of friends, and I decided to phone one of them, Ross Butler, who makes Butler's Gin. So he's the naughtiest boy I've ever worked with, but he's great fun. And I said, look, I need a name. Obviously, Sales Coaching Solutions works with teams now. I need something for the startup market and the women in business and the people who need me. And he said, oh, that's really easy. And I said, is it? He said, you are the entrepreneur's godmother. I so am the entrepreneur's godmother. So what I've done with the brand now is led into, so again, I can work with a group of people. It's the same content that I'll teach to teams. So it's not, sometimes you go to events and you feel you're being sold at all the time. I would say I'm an educator. I'm a distributor of skills is how I would describe myself. And at the end of the courses, again, the big open courses, then people walk away with skills. Also, I've got online courses and now I've got the book. So there's something I can teach people to sell from £12 or £10 on Amazon to thousands of pounds if it's bigger organisations. So I think having that really gave me clarity. So I've got real clarity in where the business sits, how I monetize it and how I drive it forward. So, but it didn't come. That wasn't something that I was started at the beginning of the journey. It's taken a while to come up with that.
And I think that's really, it's really important knowing why you're doing something and what it is that you're doing and how you're positioning it is really critical. And the approach of, as you said, when you go to an event, so often you come away feeling that the sole purpose was to sell. And I accept that if somebody's doing something for a low price, that they do want to sell you, but it's giving that mixture of value, which for me sells in itself, because if you're giving me value, then when you tell me, by the way, you can have more of my time or you can do this, then I'm already sold. Whereas if you just start hitting me, you just switch off, don't you?
It drives me bananas. It's one of my pet hates. In fact, I'd probably say I'm rage against the machine against it, because, looking at the Godmother when we did the research, and again, I think doing research on your business before before we launched the Godmother, we had to look at what the value proposition was. So we went to a few events and had a little look round, and just literally, people talked about themselves most of the time. And then they did buy this now, here's the bonus, here's the deal. And it's like, why am I going to give you money? And I'm dumbfounded by the number of people that actually pay to do it, because, well, again, I'm dumbfounded, but I've got a theory behind it, Deborah. I've got a theory behind it. So I educate in skills, but I'm a firm believer in mindset. So especially for sales, and again, I talk about, I think I am, therefore I am. So you need to believe in what you do. And again, I think that's very mindset based. And, in the book or in the teachings, I read the stories of Carol Dweck. So, she just, the fixed and growth mindset things that she teaches just blew me away. So what I think, again, fundamentally, especially in business, people are quite greedy. They want to get rich quick. They want the quick win. They don't want the hard work. And people peddle this myth that you can, work 4 days a week or whatever it is, or you can get to 6 figures just by doing a webinar, or it's not factual. And it really, again, I'm rage against the machine about it. But what I think is, again, you go to a lot of these events, especially the big ones, and, it's quite NLP driven. The music's really pumping you up. And again, this is controversial. It's a bit like heroin. So you go in there and they're pumping you full of heroin. And you're like, wow, this is amazing. Oh, I'm having the best time ever. I'm having the best time ever. But you come out with no skills. And what happens is you crash, you've spent all that money, and then you crave that next bit of mindset pumping. And again, the number of people I see spend it, they can always seem to find money for things like that. But investing in skills is definitely the way forward. And I look at my clients who, again, some of them, we charge £129 to come and learn skills. And some of them have gone away from it at the end and they've landed £10,000 contracts, even from one day. And again, that's where I feel that the mindset, the whoop, gives you the mindset to do it, but you still the next day don't really know what you're doing. You're no wiser to what you do. Your head might be in a better place, but your skills aren't.
Well, and you've also been sold in that in event that you don't know how to do it. So you've been told how how you could feel, how the world is wonderful, and as you say, everything's pumping. But you've also been told that the only way you're going to achieve it is if you spend this money and do this, and so it is quite a negative thing.
And why don't you invest $20,000 a day with me to get that other bus?
It'll be worth it, and we guarantee, if you don't get anything, it'll be and it is a really common, as you say, like it's used in so many different environments. Though I went to an event last night which is run by Richard Woods, and
I love Richard.
And he's really I interviewed him yesterday as well, so he'll be on the podcast. I can't remember if he's coming on before you or after you, but I had invited somebody else to come along to the event in the evening, and I said to her, it's worth coming. There is a sell in there, but it's a soft sell, and it's a really nicely done. It's just, look, here's what we're about. If you're interested, fill in the form at the end of the thing, and so much quality information.
I mean, so the ethos that I teach is I genuinely believe when it's delivered correctly that sales and customer service is exactly the same thing, right? So, at the end of my course, I'll do a sell because I feel that I can help them more to learn more skills. So by me not doing an offer at the end, I'm doing them a disservice. So again, it's not a pushy sale and it's not positioned, it's literally, and I love Richard. We do quite a lot of speaking at events together. And his skills, like his digital, and he's now got his new plumbing company or boiler company or whatever it is. And it's just, again, you want to learn from somebody who's got skills in that area. And, you look at Richard, he was always my favourite on The Apprentice. So I do, it's great. And there are some really good, cool people out there who can teach you genuine stuff. And, that's where I think that people should invest their money.
And I think it makes a difference in terms of how the people react as well, because if you then have gone to an event like that, you want to tell other people to go to. You're going, actually, you got this huge value from it, even if you don't buy the next piece along. And that in itself is a huge value. So, well, hopefully, I was going to say, hopefully we'll see more people going down that route. But I suspect until maybe you need to turn into a godmother with an alter ego that is, sort of smashing the sales for the people who are doing it the wrong way.
Do you know what is funny? Because a lot of times, so the brand name gets a little bit confused. So people go, oh, the godmother, does that mean you've got a tiara and a wand? And I do have a tiara and a wand, and I am the magic fairy, and it is all nice. But also I am, kick butt. So I'm also like the Godfather with a horse in head in the bed. If they don't do their tasks, then I will, So there's a combination in there. It's not all sweetness and light. Ultimately, people, really need to follow the structure and the process and things. So I get tough with them as well, which is a bit of a combination of the godmother.
So do you have sort of, an outfit where you can whip off the wand and the tiara and suddenly you're there in black looking threatening?
No, unfortunately, the pink just stays there all the time. It's the facial expressions become a bit tougher.
So with the sales side of it, it's something, that I've, come up against myself. It's something that when I talk to other people, either who are starting up or a bit further down the line in their business, it is always a challenge. And my personal view is that we still have this preconception about sales. They're the cold callers, they're the people who are coming on and pushing something at you that you don't want. And so we shy away from that because we're going, well, I don't want to be that person. How would I feel if this happened? And do you find that that's the mindset people come to you with when they start?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. So the working title of the book was actually Selling is Not Swearing. And the reason for that, I can go into a room full of like loads of people and they'll say, what is it you're doing? I go, I'm a sales trainer. And they grimace, they're like hiding. Whereas if I sit in a room and in conversation, I use the F word, nobody even flinches. So, you can get away with swearing more than you can using the word sales. So for me, And again, you know, people were talking when I started the business or when I was in corporate that the mission statement and the vision statement. And like the mission statement was always like something you had to learn to pass a test to say that you'd done that work in work. But when it came to creating the own mission and vision statement, so the mission statement is, I genuinely believe when it's delivered correctly that sales and customer service is exactly the same thing. And again, when people do start to believe that, it does help their sales. I mean, the other common thing, I think, for people who haven't been sales trained is they talk too much. You know, they go, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that. And sales is never really about talking. It's always about listening, having a good conversation, really good questioning techniques to get to what the customer needs, not what the customer wants, what the customer needs. And when, you know, sometimes you don't match, you are not going to sell to everyone. But when you match what they sell, then the benefits of what you do, it's just really easy. And that's where, again, if you follow the methodology that I created is around behaviors. So like finds like, it's easy to sell to people who are like you. Then sales is a process. So if you think about James Dyson, he manufactures the vacuums and they go through the same process every time. Sometimes they'll fall through quality control because you're not going to sell to everyone. But most of the time, they will see their way through. So again, that's the same as sales. If you follow process, you will sell to more. And the other thing is strategy. So again, you know, you look, for example, for me, if you look at the small business market, there's an organisation called Enterprise Nation. Have you heard of Enterprise Nation?
Yes.
So it's run by Emma Jones. So Emma Jones used to host the marketplace for the growth vouchers, which is where the government funding came from. So for me, she was a big influencer. It was a big part of my strategy that I worked closely with Emma, but I didn't know who Emma was. So I had to, again, use social media. I'm a big believer in using social media to build relationships. And eventually, so when your strategies really worked, when the person who you really wanted to be friends with writes the foreword for your book. So again, having a strong strategy is important. But the fourth pillar of my methodology is the one which I see most often and is most common, and it's confidence. And especially in women, especially women who have maybe gone off and had kids and come back and set in their own business, they get quite knocked, they're quite frightened to ask for the sale. And the reason that they struggle with confidence, they don't know the behaviours, they don't know the process, and they don't have a sales strategy, because when they've got the other three key areas, the fourth one just flows in. And I've got one of my clients, Carol Aplin, who's actually in the book as well. And she started her business at 57 years old. And I first met her on the Growth Voucher Roadshows. She came and she sat like a little mouse in the corner of the room. She wouldn't speak to anyone. She just was like, thinking about starting a business. And even like her body language and her tone and her pace. And I started working with her on Growth Vouchers. That was 2014. Now she's just bloomed. She spoke at London Fashion Week. She's got a team that work for her. It's just absolutely fantastic. It's amazing.
In terms of that confidence and things like that, so one of the things that I've come across is imposter syndrome. And do you think that that's, when you're putting those strategies and all of those other pillars in place, that's overcoming the imposter syndrome?
Yeah, I think, there's a section in the book about imposter syndrome as well, because I think that's something that Carol really struggled with too, that, and I think that everybody, I would challenge anybody that hasn't struggled with it before. I talked earlier when I set the business up, my husband wasn't taking me seriously because I was playing at it. And I think that was imposter syndrome. And I'm generally in life a fairly confident person. But I can remember, Deborah, going to a networking event. I joined the Chamber of Commerce and I went to my first ever networking event ever, because when I worked in corporate, we didn't do, we didn't actually network with the general public. We only networked with other people like us. So this is my first experience. But again, this is going to sound really odd. My kids were really quite young. I didn't get out much. And part of the reason I went networking was so that I could just have a glass of wine and a bit of adult company. So when the girls that ran the event said, that man over there, he's looking for a sales trainer. And I'm like that. I said, "What? Is that me? Is that me?" Because, I just didn't feel confident. I felt like, oh, other people do that. And I think what I've learned about imposter syndrome and what I teach about imposter syndrome is that actually, we shouldn't compare ourselves to anyone else because we are who we are. And I think especially at the start of the journey, we think that other people are so much better or know so much more. And it's not, it's just that we know different, and even now I collaborate with quite a lot of the other sales trainers. And, some people would be threatened by other people in their industry, but collaboration is king. They don't do what I do. And there's only one entrepreneur's godmother. So I'm not frightened of anyone, in any space because I've created my own niche and my own little world of godmotherness. And again, that's another secret to marketing. If you've created something that's really different and really special, then you don't have any competition in that field anyway. So why would you be frightened?
And that's a really valid point, I think, because, and I know I've been the same. It's kind of thinking, oh, well, what if there's somebody else who does the same as me? And what if, somebody is going to them instead? And it is accepting that actually they might go to the other person. But the reality is that the people that don't go to them probably come to me because we're different people. We're different personalities.
Yeah.
As you said, the like, attracts like. But it's back to that confidence of being able to go, well, that's okay. They went to him or her. But it's difficult when you're starting. It's really hard, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think that I was very like, I'll do it for free to get a case study. And I'm like, why am I doing anything for free? So again, I think that's another thing with confidence. I think there are things that you have to do, again, strategic things. But, knowing your price, and people tend to sort of go, oh, I'll do that because that's what they'll pay. You have to work backwards. How much money do you need to take out of your business? What is it? If you went to get a job on the tills at Tesco, how much would you earn? Sometimes it's, again, looking at where your personal budget lies and then bringing that back into your business so that you know how much you need to earn. And again, that is the KPI. So if I need to earn that, how many days and what's the productivity behind those days? And ultimately, it is how many sales calls do I have to make? How many meetings? And I think this is why, Penny and I talk about this quite a lot, but I think this is why sales is at the core of every business, because if you don't sell, you don't have a business. It's just a good idea. So it's really important that you really, from the start of the journey, you focus on sales because, so for me, sales is at the core of any business, because if you don't sell, you don't have a business. It's just a good idea. But I think, again, in the book as well, I talk a lot about the difference between sales and marketing. And this is what I see a lot of small business owners really struggle with, because they don't know the difference. So I describe it as the difference. I describe it like golf. So if you can imagine golf, you put the tee in the ground and you put the ball in the tee. So that's kind of marketing. They set it up. They'll do the Facebook ads or anything, your LinkedIn posts or anything around sending emails. That's not sales. That's marketing. Then what happens is sales will pick up the ball, put it on the green, put it on the and put it in the hole, because only when the ball goes in the hole do you make any money. That's sales. But then you look at marketing. If it's done well, what they'll do is they'll actually put the ball closer to the hole. And again, for sales, we just tap it in and take all the glory. So again, it would mean less interaction. But to me, sales is always the face, not the face-to-face, but the personal, the conversational, the phone. Whereas if it's done by email, or if you look at things like Amazon and eBay, that's like a hole-in-one for marketing. That's not even sales at all. And I think everybody wants the holy grail. They all want the hole-in-one, but how often do people get a hole-in-one? Unfortunately, you have to get your sales involved to get the ball in the hole.
And that's a really good analogy, because even as somebody who doesn't play golf, I get that.
Yeah.
And I can understand as you say, the positioning of what's marketing, and the idea that anything that's not really involving me talking to somebody is about marketing and awareness, and getting their interest. And then it's that conversation which takes them to signing on the dotted line is the sales piece. Have I got that right?
Yeah, that's right. So again, especially in you look at B2C, and again, that a lot of that is just good marketing. ASOS don't even have a sales team, I don't think, and people just go on there and they buy their clothes and do whatever. And again, if you are targeting a B2C, business to consumer, then again, good marketing do get hole-in-ones. But in a business-to-business environment, it's all about sales, not really about marketing. I mean, if you're strong enough at sales, you don't even need a website, really. You can do that yourself.
Which is amazing, because we all get stuck. And again, I think this is really true when you're first starting out, about all of the things that you have to have, and that you have to have a website, and you have to have, a logo, and all of these different things. Whereas it's a new idea for me, I guess, to be going, well, actually, no, if you're good enough at sales, you don't necessarily need some of that structure.
Well, the reason you don't need that is people buy people. So ultimately, people buy people through sales. So that's where, no matter what you're selling, even if you're selling product. So again, for me, I was selling advertising space, which isn't even you can't even touchy-feely it. But we would always smash it out the park at sales. So they were buying me, and they were trusting me, and they were believing in what I was saying. And again, I think being ethical, I never, again, as I mentioned at the start of the interview, I can't sell something I don't believe in. So if I don't believe in it, I can't sell it. And I think that's where ultimately the reason I was successful was people were buying me.
Yeah, because they're believing in you, and you believe in what you're selling.
Yeah.
So how do you take somebody who, through your process and through the training, whether it's in the book or in the different options that you provide, how do you get them to that? So what I'm assuming, and please tell me if I'm wrong, is that when somebody comes into you, is that they're telling you that they believe, but that maybe deep down they don't, whether it's the imposter syndrome, whether it's that lack of confidence in themselves. And so how do you get them to really believe?
So two things. If they don't believe in what they do, they will struggle to sell it. So if it's product, for example, I won't work with them until they've got confidence in the product, because they're just wasting their money on spending it on me, because they'll never be able to sell. So again, I would never take somebody's money if they thought, well, my product needs this or it needs that. Well, go away and make that better and then come back, because without having confidence in your product, you're going to struggle. So, and business evolves, products and services evolve. It's like me, we're forever tweaking our packages or forever tweaking what we do. So you can tweak, but ultimately I know that I can teach people to sell. So that belief in the underarching thing in the business is the thing, whether the packages are right or whether the blogs are right or whatever it is kind of irrelevant, because the overarching thing is the belief. So I think for someone, they just have to believe that they are the best. So if they're a nutritionist, or if they are a virtual assistant, or if they make peanut butter, or that's the fundamental to get rid of the imposter syndrome is this sort of stronger part that they have to sort of overcome. And I'll help them with that, because that will help them sell it. But if they really just feel that it's not good enough, then they're going to struggle to sell.
Yes, and sorry, you can't see, but I'm kind of thinking. I've got my thinking face on.
That's all right.
Unhelpful for people listening. I guess I'm thinking about the fact that as I've evolved through what I'm doing, that I've definitely experienced some of that, where people have suggested to me a route that I might go down, and then I haven't felt confident. That hasn't felt like me, or something that I can confidently say, yes, I can deliver this.
Yeah.
So looking back at it now, I can see the knock-on effect of that. So that really does resonate with me.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is a really important thing. And I think the other thing is, depending on who you are and what you're in. I mean, I started the business in 2011, but at 2018 now, it's not a quick win, and it's always evolving. And that's why, again, so many people take advice from business advisors, because they really, they really need that input to help them think things through, because you don't know everything about business, but you don't know what you don't know.
Absolutely true. And having somebody there to guide you or to point you in the right direction or find the right path for you can make a huge difference.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
So when you were looking at defining, your packages, and you were looking at how you were going to work, so you'd gone from being the woman playing at a job whose husband, was unsupportive to now going, no, actually, this is real, and I'm going to put my energy and belief into it.
Yeah.
How did you then move on to deciding to write a book, and what was it like to get that written and to get it actually published and out there into the world?
Oh, I can't even really describe the book, the process of the book. So I'm dyslexic. So and again, I think this feeds into imposter syndrome and mindset. So I really struggle. One of my pet things, you talk about confidence. Every time I post on LinkedIn, because I'm dyslexic, it's not that I'm sloppy, it's just literally the words just don't look right, they don't make sense, and I've read it back and I go, yeah, that's right, and then someone will pull me up on my grammar and things like that. So I'd always convince myself that I couldn't write, which again, that's just, again, people are convincing themselves every day they can't sell, but I convinced myself that I couldn't write. And the girls that worked for me at the time, I work with a lot of young people really inspire me. So they come and they start as interns, and then they stay on for usually about a year, some of them a couple of years. And at the time, the two of the girls were English Lit graduates. And they were like, I'm going to write a blog on this, and I'm going to write a blog on that, and and I'm going, that's brilliant, because I can't write. And they're going to go, oh, write a blog on this, and I went, that's great, because I can't write. And then one day I went, hang on, who told me that I can't write? Literally, I was like, hang on, I can do whatever I want to do. No one can tell me I'm not going to do that. I wrote my first ever blog, and it's still on the website, and it's really just so strong. I felt that I was obliged to get it down in a format that people would learn from, because again, I'm an educator of skills. So the feedback from the blog was amazing. So I thought, right, you know what? I'm going to keep on writing a couple of these blogs. And the more the blogs were coming together, the more I thought, you know what? I could actually write a book. I can do this. So I started to write a book with the blogs, and it was not really going very far. So January 17, that was it. It was on the business plan. We had a plan for it. We were going to get it done. So I started writing more, and I got somebody to help me. So he had written a book before, and he published a book before, and he'd helped someone else. So I thought, well, this will be the easy route. He just interviews me. He writes it down, takes the blogs. Voila, we have a book. And we tried that, and it didn't sound like me. This is the hard thing about writing a book, especially with a brand like the Entrepreneur's Godmother. It's got to reflect me. So we pretty much had paid for that, and we couldn't use most of it. So Kaya, again, one of the girls that worked for me, we said, well, I don't know what I'm going to do now. And she said, look, you can do it. You've got this. That whole phrase, you've got this. So I started to do more writing, and then when I got stuck, I would speak, and she would write, and then we would edit together. And then same thing, sometimes I would write, she would edit, and literally we just pulled it together out of the bag. It took about a year from, again, taking it seriously to getting it published. But the feedback has been amazing. I am absolutely dumbfounded, to be honest, because talking about fears in business. So there was two fears I had. One was that people would think it was rubbish, especially salespeople, because halfway through the write, we decided to not just make it be for entrepreneurs, we decided to make it relevant to salespeople as well. So I thought, oh, the salespeople that are experienced, they're going to go, this is rubbish, we know all this. But the salespeople that are reading it love it. They absolutely adore it. So it went out 7 weeks ago. It's been #1 on Amazon. Like, it pretty much jumps up one day, jumps back off, jumps back in, jumps back off. It's just floating in and out of #1. And already it's had 53 5-star reviews from people I don't even know. So my dog didn't review it. My hamster didn't review it. So I'm really chuffed. And it just, I'd say it's probably the biggest, thing that I've overcome as a challenge since I started the business, really.
That's really amazing. And hearing you talk about the fact that you actually believed you couldn't write to now having a #1 bestseller is absolutely fantastic. And I think as well, what I'm really enjoying about that story is the support that you had from your young team and able to support you and encourage you and coach you, even though in theory that's what you were meant to be doing with them, which I'm sure as well. But it was the reverse situation.
And it's mutual, but I think that's a sign of a good team, that everybody supports everyone else. And that, like, the girls, again, they usually stay. Kaya was with me for nearly 2 years. Natasha was there for over a year. So they're with me a long time. But at that stage, I kind of pushed them out the door because they're young girls. It's time they went and found the world. So they usually go traveling. Kaya is now in Portugal doing surf school, and Natasha is in Canada. She was actually in Whistler, so she's not far from where we're from, Deborah. She's in Vancouver at the moment. So again, I take that as one of my biggest achievements, that I can inspire young people, just people in general, but young people to go out and discover the world. And, even both of them, by their own admittance, didn't feel that they could have done that prior to working for me.
And that's a really rewarding feeling, isn't it? That you've had a really positive impact on their lives. It's not that you just gave them a job and some money.
No. And plus they were amazing when I got them. They were like little pieces of coal, and now they're shiny diamonds. So not only then, my legacy is that they will also inspire other people. And I see that every day. They've taken such good skills, and they WhatsApp me all the time, Deborah. Like, I get more WhatsApps from them than my kids. It's great.
That's fantastic. And it's quite similar. There's another company I know of who they realized they were getting graduates, and then the graduates would be with them for a year or two and then leave. And they were getting frustrated by the need to continually rehire. And then they suddenly thought, well, hang on, we're actually doing a good job because we're putting in a position. Yeah, so now their policy is, you will come, join us. You will stay for a year, and then you will leave.
Yeah, it's good. So I think it's young people as well. They got to go and experience different things. But if you start them off in the right path, then they're definitely going to succeed.
Yeah, and it's really fantastic to see that being supported. I'm a strong believer in helping young people to progress and develop and achieve what they can achieve. So one of the things on, I think it's your website, is that you said you want to be the Adele of sales.
Yeah, the Adele of sales training. Yes, I do. So again, coming back to that, when we talked about the mission statement and the vision statement. So the mission statement was quite easy because, again, I genuinely believe when it's delivered correctly, sales and customer service is the same thing. But the vision statement, and again, I do think, we talk a lot about goal setting, and having goals helps you achieve them. And literally, again, and I think visualization, I'm not a big one for manifestation and abundance, because I believe that you make your own destiny. You have to have where you want to go, but it doesn't just fall in your lap. You have to make a strategy. Again, strategy and skills are my thing. So for me, I want again, a bit like Adele's music, to be heard. So it's not the fact that she wants to stand up in front of Wembley Arena so people go, oh, look, there's Adele, she's fantastic. She wants the music to speak for her. And that's the same thing for me. I want what I teach to be able to touch people's businesses and how they sell to affect their life moving forward. So and don't get me wrong, I do quite like the fame aspect as well, Deborah. I quite like to be recognised when I'm at events and things, but that's not why I do it. I do it because I've got something that I can teach, and I do, getting the message to mass market will really knock that selling is not swearing away, because it's, again, something I'm really passionate about. We should not be frightened to sell, because if we do it the correct way, then we're doing a service.
And that's a really wonderful message to take, I think, because, again, as we've already discussed, with so many businesses, so many people starting up, they do feel that it's a swear word and that it is the last thing on their list to do, and yet it's the most critical thing to do.
Yeah, they hide behind their marketing. They would rather just sit there and do social media than pick up the phone.
Yes, exactly. And and the fear of those no's is well, puts you off picking up the phone or going out and meeting people face to face.
For sure.
So, Alison, you've mentioned the fact that you have, 2 children. I know you've got the dog who was wishing that he was in on the interview with us, and your husband, and you've obviously got a team of people working with you and for you. So lots of things going on in your life. How do you make sure that you maintain a balance? Obviously mental health is a really big thing these days and should always have been.
Yeah.
Much more in people's minds. So how do you make sure that you're looking after both your mental health and your general family life and well-being?
So I completely believe in mental health, and we've, again, unfortunately, in our family, we've been touched, close family, by 2, and again, young male, taking their own lives. And I think, again, mental health is something that I feel it's just not been understood in the way that it should be. For me, again, I am we were kind of brought up, I was brought up in Glasgow, Clydebank, and it's a strong working class background. My dad used to work on the shipyards. My mum was a cleaner, and, we were brought up, again, by my mother, who didn't believe in mental health, right? So she just didn't. So anytime anybody was like having anything mental health, her theory behind it was, they just need to put a pin up their ass and get on with it. So she was never understanding of mental health, bless my mother, who has passed away. But I think it gave me a resilience. I think what that taught me was resilience to picking yourself up and just getting on with it. So I think that I'm actually quite good. And, I'll give you an example. Pretty much, Deborah, is what you get, right? Literally, anybody that knows, that's met me, this is not an act. I'm pretty much upbeat most of the time. Unfortunately, my husband, it drives him mad, and my kids, it drives them mad. But when I go down, I go fairly far down. Something happened yesterday, and I had a run-in with somebody about an event. Not getting into any details, but it really did, it threw my equilibrium off. And it meant that I couldn't really work yesterday because my head was going over it and over it and over it and over it. And it would have been really easy for me today to carry that into the next day. But you wake up and every day is a fresh page. Every day is a new day. Every day, if you keep the ethos that you just bring your A game, there's nothing that I could have done to have influenced what happened yesterday. And when I reviewed it, I spoke to somebody, one of my friends who is in a similar industry, and I went through the situation, and she said, Alison, I run events like this all the time. This is not you. And I think that's the important thing to take away, that some of the times we beat ourselves up for things that this is not us. So I do think, again, my top tip around mental health is, just try and shut the door on that day and open it with a new blank page and go. Another thing that does help me is I turned 50 last year. Drat. I don't know how that happened. So 2 things happened around that milestone birthday. One was I took it really quite badly because I felt that, the end is closer than the beginning. So mentally, again, for me, it was like I was really in the doldrums. I was like, I quite like being 40, I like being 30, but this 50, this is like, I feel I'm coming near the end. And again, not like imminently near the end, but again, just mentally, it was like, oh. And I've got a really good, I think the top tip is all this is surround yourself with good friends and good people. So a friend of mine was round and she went, what's wrong with you? I never see you, down like this. And I went, oh, turning 50. She went, my friend's dying of breast cancer, just get on with it. So again, it was that whole thing, like my mum, it was like, stop wallowing in your own self-pity, pick yourself up and get on with it. So, and I know for a lot of people, it's not that easy. And again, I think for me, again, coming back to mindset, I think that I was brought up with a growth mindset. And if you've got a fixed mindset, then I think you're more susceptible to mental health because we have that in our family. The other thing was, as my 50th birthday present, my husband bought me a hot tub. So, Deborah, anytime that I think it's just not going great, I sit in my hot tub and I count my blessings. And I think that's another thing. People focus on the things they've not got. Never focus on the things you've not got. Focus on the things that you have got. And only you can influence that.
And that's really great advice. And a lot of people that I've been interviewing have said that they actually consciously do something every day to recognize what they've got or what has been successful or good, whether it's work related or personal, to keep that in mind and at the forefront of their minds.
Yeah, definitely. And again, another thing is I do quite a lot of work. So my chosen sort of give back is young enterprise. So again, because I've got this ethos around helping young people in my business, I like to work with young enterprise and inspire young people, and just about to start and do some work with the Princess Trust as well, and also the Duke of York Awards idea. So again, I've got things where I've come across people who are less fortunate. And I think that always helps you to feel more fortunate when you're spending time with people. And again, coming from a working class background in Glasgow, it is there for the grace of God go I. So, never taking for granted what you've got.
Yes, and really appreciating it and and supporting, I guess, yourself in going through that.
Mm.
So if we were looking at, yesterday where you said, it was a really tough day and you found it difficult to do any work, and then waking up this morning, was it a conscious process that you went through that said, actually, that was yesterday, I'm just going to forget it and move on? Or did just having that time yesterday mean that when you woke up this morning, it wasn't really on your mind anymore?
Combination of both. It wasn't at the forefront of my mind because every day when I get up, I focus on what I'm going to do that day. So again, as you know, I had a client this morning. I'm with you now. I've got clients this afternoon. So my focus is always on what I'm doing on that day. But when I wake up, it was still there. But again, it was a conscious decision to say, enough now. This is taking too much of my time. It's not worthy of this time. I'm not going to think about it. I'm going to do these things. So, and I do think like there is this thing about sending emails in haste, and the emails were sent in haste not by me but by the other person. And I think a top tip is spend time really just thinking about it. Do sleep on it, wait for 24, wait for 48 hours if you can, because it will be less emotional. And again, sort of try and dilute it a bit before you would respond to the email.
Well, and my practice rather with that is I write the email, but I delete the to field so I can't accidentally send it.
That's a good tip as well, Deborah. Good tip.
Yes, so especially because for me, I actually use keystrokes to send, so I can be pump, and it's gone. So by taking the to out, it doesn't work, and so I get that little vent out, and then I come back and look at it again and go, oh, okay, maybe that's not the best way to say it, or maybe it wasn't that big of a problem, or. But as you say, the emotion's gone.
Yeah, definitely.
Because there's nothing worse, is there, than sending it and then thinking, oh, shoot.
Yeah, shouldn't have done that.
That's it. Or I could have called them. It would have been so much easier.
Yeah, definitely. I think, again, that's this thing, like phone calls can resolve so many issues. And again, that's sales because you're building that relationship. And again, even if it's a situation, getting an outcome that you want is a sale, whether it's a financial sale or just a resolve of any issue. And that's where things on email just get, especially when you're dyslexic, it just gets lost in translation.
And that's a really interesting perspective because, again, I think of sales more in the financial transaction and looking at just any call, if you get the outcome you want, is a successful sale. I
Yeah.
think that would really help me and, maybe others in terms of going, okay, well, I'm doing sales all the time, even if there's no finance involved in it.
And that's a really key issue. You should break everything down. So to me, one of my things is purpose. Everything we do must have a purpose. What is the purpose of this? What is the purpose of that? And even getting an appointment, you should pat yourself on the back. Or, again, I'm not a big one for doing coffee because it's not got a purpose. So if somebody says, can we do coffee? I'll be like, no, not really. That puts me off. I wouldn't really want to talk to them because it sounds a bit wishy-washy and there's no purpose. So again, when you do get a chance to have a meeting that's about something productive, pat yourself on the back because you're a step closer to a sale.
And that also then lifts your spirits, builds your confidence, and it all goes round in a circle, doesn't it?
All of that just feeds straight back in again. And again, help, coming back to mental health and mindset. If you're breaking down the wins, you're going to be in a better place mentally.
So this has been, really interesting, and it's really lovely to speak to you, Alison. Just before we wrap up, I wondered, one, if you wanted to say anything about, the book, Secrets of Successful Sales. And I know that you also have a Facebook group. You do some coaching and workshops. If you just wanted to share a little bit about those.
So the best way to get a hold of me is actually via my website, which is www.alisonedgar.com. So on there, you can access my books. I do live workshops. I do packages which include coaching, and also, more to the point, I do free online courses. So in the packages, we do amazing, and again, they've had 5-star reviews as well, so that you can work with me no matter where you are. But at the moment, we've created some fantastic new free online courses that help startups, micros, and owner-managed businesses.
That is wonderful, and I will make sure that I post a link on the podcast and into the gallery as well for anybody who's looking to find that if they didn't catch the website address. So just before we go, Alison, is there any final tip or any final thing that you'd like to say to our listeners?
So my top tip, and when I do my live courses, I bring up a picture of Kate Moss and I say, am I Kate Moss? And the audience honestly don't know what to say. Someone once said, I've never seen you both in the same room at the same time, but I am not Kate Moss. I'm now 50. I am not a size 0, and I wasn't blessed with great skin. But every single day I look in the mirror, I see the supermodel of sales. And because I see that, that is what other people see. So you have to have confidence in yourself, because if you don't have confidence in yourself, other people will not have confidence in you.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much, Alison.
You're welcome. Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure having you on.
You're welcome. Take care. Bye.
I've been in conversation with Alison Edgar, Managing Director of Sales Coaching Solutions and the Entrepreneur's Godmother. She's one of the UK's top 10 business advisors and now a best-selling author. Are you considering your own podcast? Why not check out So You Think You Want Your Own Podcast? It's an online course that introduces you to everything that's involved in hosting a podcast, as well as working with you to define your own podcast concept. You can get more information on it at startyourownpodcast.bridginggaps.uk. Next week is the last episode in Season 1 of Bridging Gaps, the business podcast. I'll be in conversation with Daniel Priestley, entrepreneur, best-selling author, professional speaker, and co-founder of Dent Global. Bridging Gaps, the business podcast, was produced by Deborah Levitt of Bridge Road Consultants Limited, with original music provided by Pete Dineley.
You've been listening to Deborah Levitt on Bridging Gaps, the business podcast.